Hello everyone, how are you going? Welcome to American Cops versus Canadian Cops, something that I would have expected to be virtually one and the same. I'm sure they have a lot of the same resources and a lot of the same even intel that they share between each other, but how do they differ?
Alright, so you want to be a cop in the USA. You've done your research, meaning you've seen The Wire, watched all episodes of NYPD Blue, and even stayed up late to watch reruns of Columbo and Cagney and Lacey. You are basically ready to hit the streets, right? Well, we should tell you a few things about what you need to do to become a police officer in America. The good news is that you don't have to be a genius to land the job. It's open to most people, so long as you have some brain power and didn't spend your teens doing hits for the Mexican Mafia.
Geez, well, the bar certainly isn't very low then if that's what you have to do. I mean, I know that they said you have to have some brain power, but it's almost a little bit scary that that's all you have to have is some brain power and not a just disgraceful criminal record.
You can get a law enforcement degree, and this should land you better jobs. But you can also apply to be a cop after high school. So to get in, you'll need a high school diploma or a GED, which is considered equal to that diploma. After that, you'll be interviewed and have background checks. If you have a minor offense, you may still get in. You may not have to be super fit, but you'll likely have to be relatively fit. Once you get into the academy, you'll have to pass some kind of entrance exam, such as the law enforcement examination. Then you'll start your training. You'll also have to pass a fitness test or the police physical fitness abilities test. These tests can change depending on where you're training, but you'll mostly have to show you can sprint reasonably fast and able to run 1.5 miles in anywhere from 16 to 20 minutes.
Okay, I just have to take that in for a second because what does reasonably fast mean? Surely there has to be a quota, and then 1.5 miles in 16 minutes. I feel as though that's not that fast in terms of, I guess it's not military fast, but surely you want your police officers to be able to at least run a little bit. I mean, of course, these are just minimums, and anyone that was actually really interested in becoming a police officer would actually push themselves a little bit further to become fitter and smarter and better in all these different ways to even just stand out from the crowd. But even with a wide variety of jobs within the police force, I would have thought that the bar would just be a little bit higher for some reason. Maybe they just can't get people, so it has to be low.
But you'll have to show your strength by doing a fairly tricky obstacle course. And on top of that, you'll have to do around 20 push-ups in 1 minute and 30 sit-ups in 1 minute. As we said, this can change depending on the academy. Let's just say you have to be fairly fit to pass, but by no means have to be an exceptional athlete. Training will last around 30 weeks, and even after you've passed, you'll be put on probation for up to 18 months at the department where you'll be working.
Alright, well I guess in conjunction with those other fitness metrics, it definitely isn't the easiest thing in the world. It's not like everyone can do that, and at least there is some kind of minimum requirements. To be fair, it's not like a police officer's day is just full of physical activity. There's a lot of documentation, and even just walking around standing still, for goodness sake, you need to be able to stand still and be almost a security guard for half your life. And so I guess that is more so where you are having the strength requirements come into it. You know, like I said, it's not the military. You're not having to carry some 80-kilo backpack for 14 hours in a day. No, you get to be in the car, be in the office, and do a little bit of everything and just be able to hold your own.
Over in Canada, you can also start training at age 18, but you cannot hit the streets until you're 19. You'll also need a high school diploma or the equivalent, and during the interview process, you'll have to show good health, both mental and physical. On its website, the RCMP says turning up to the interview looking like you've done nothing but eat donuts and played Grand Theft Auto throughout high school will put you at a distinct disadvantage.
I mean, yeah, I guess that is fair enough, but that is very, very straight to the point. I can't believe they actually worded it like that, especially just the donuts part. Is that such an international stereotype against all cops that they just chow down on so many donuts? And so to be saying that and just be saying if you turn up into our interview just looking like Chief Wiggum playing GTA, you're not getting the job, or at least we're going to send you out with a fitness regime.
You'll also have to pass background checks, and again, a very small infraction in life may not mean you can't get in. Pass the interview and off you'll go to training school for 26 weeks. Yes, again, there will be written tests that should not challenge most who have done okay in high school. As for the fitness test, you'll need to do the physical abilities requirement evaluation, and that will consist of doing an obstacle course, push-ups and pull-ups, and a weighted carry, all under a time of 5 minutes and 30 seconds or less, and that's at the start of training. At the end, you'll have to be able to do that same test in less than 4 minutes.
Wow, interesting that there is actually those kind of minimum requirements as well, and that it increases throughout training. You have to lose a whole minute, 20% of the time. I mean, yeah, I guess that's what 26 weeks, which is actually less than the USA's, but 26 weeks can do. And even though they're just briefly mentioning all the minimum requirements for you to get accepted into both the USA and Canada, it would be interesting to know what would be the minimum thing you would do to be able to get kicked out. You know, once you're accepted, do you just fail a test? Because I feel as though those kinds of things exist in the military where if someone just really isn't up to it, really isn't cutting the mustard, then they will just remove them from the course. Even if they are passing the tests and the physicals, they're just going, you just seem a bit off. I mean, perhaps that is more just towards the special forces areas where they're really looking for one thing in particular or not. Either way, I feel as though it would be interesting to know what the failure rate once someone is accepted is. I mean, yes, they can always remove themselves, I can assume, but once they're actually accepted, how many people just don't make it?
So now you're in the force, but what's it like? Well, first of all, how much are you being paid? The amount fluctuates across the USA, but PayScale in 2017 said the average was $44,000 a year for the first 0 to 5 years as a rookie cop. Other sites tell us the starting salary for most cops is closer to $30,000, and it will increase by the year. That might go up to $50,000 between your 5th and your 10th year, but it depends on how well you do. Where you are matters a lot, with sources telling us that the average wage for cops in California is considerably more than double the average for cops in Mississippi. As for Canada, you can check out the job site Indeed and see police officer positions with a yearly wage of around $60,000. After we converted them from Canadian dollars, again, it depends on where you work, but PayScale tells us the average salary when you just join the force is around $37,000.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I don't really know. How does that line up with, let's say, an apprentice wage in those countries? Because from what they are saying, it takes you a minimum or about 5 years to just be developing your skills to the point where you're just getting a little bit more income. You know, a rookie cop earning 30 to 40,000 a year ends up being closer to 50,000, and it's amazing the pay scale just between the different states even. Here we go, the New South Wales government, I haven't even looked down, but I think I saw something like 70 something, yeah. Probationary constable, is that, yes, okay, that must be the first rank, so 76,000, and then constable level 5 goes up to 86,000. And then you can see that, well, even just number 3 is going to be the maximum possible, even just a constable isn't a senior constable, but let's just say it was a senior constable earning 86 grand, you still got a little bit more you can climb up there. But even just taking a starting wage into consideration, you know, you're starting off at 50,000 US dollars, so in comparison, it's pretty good, I'd say.
It seems the wages for US cops and Canadian cops are not dramatically different, but which country would be better to work in? We're told that a big difference in policing is the fact that Canada has a federal criminal code, while in the US things change from state to state. This means in Canada, training and procedures are the same all over, which can make life easier. One website tells us that in Canada, the money for police force comes from taxes, while in the US, part of the money comes from the tickets people have to pay. That website tells us that this has led to a stricter kind of policing in the US, as the force needs to make money. We're told in Canada they call it a police service, while in the US it's called a police force.
Really? Is that true? A police service? Wow, I mean, it's a much better mindset to have, and I know in New South Wales at least it's just so much higher than any of the other states. I mean, Victoria's pretty high as well, but we definitely do call it a police force and definitely not a police service. And so if that is the case, where all the money is just coming from federal budgets instead of just any revenue raising from tickets and all those kind of things, then I can understand why, I don't know, why it'd be viewed differently if nothing else.
We're told in Canada they call it a police service, while in the US it's called a police force. Canadians adopt a kind of community policing, while in the US the cops are perhaps less part of their communities. Then there's the matter of higher crime rates in the US. We'll let an expert explain. Canadians often point to a single major difference between our two cultures as a starting point. Guns are far more easily available in the United States than in Canada. This environment leads to a tense situation for any police officer, no matter how polite he or she may wish to appear. And this means the US police are not only in more danger, but tend to use a bit more force. We've all seen the videos of perhaps rather over-the-top policing. We might also say that officers are in some part of the US under tremendous stresses, given the number of guns on the street. We're told that US officers use lethal force about 6 times more than the average Canadian cop.
Jeez, I just have to pause it there because listening to that statistic right there, lethal force 6 times more often than Canadian police. Not 6 more times because they have 15 times the population, but 6 times more often. That is a massive statistic, but I guess like he explained it, it does make sense in some ways. Not that it's right, but it makes sense.
The Washington Post told us that in 2015, US police shot and killed close to 1,000 people, while in Canada that number on average was about 15 people a year. Unless you're mentally unhinged, killing people is something you certainly don't want to do. And in the US, as a police officer, it's much more likely that you will. We're told that in 2018, according to the Officer Down Memorial page, 149 deaths of officers occurred in the line of duty. Most were shootings, but cops also perish in car crashes while performing their duties and other ways. Some deaths might just have been accidents, but we're told firearms were involved in most deaths.
Wow. I didn't even take into consideration the car crash fatalities in the USA in comparison, so I wonder how much it truly is, because he didn't say, he just said, oh, it's a thing that happens. And of course, that is why so many cops are just left in two mindsets about just doing police chases, because so often it can end badly for so many people, not even just themselves. And so I wonder how Canada actually just combats this, and even just how any country combats this, because is it just a massively big deal in the USA, or what's going on? I mean, for goodness sake, this entire video just keeps putting Canada on horses, and so I guess it can't be a car crash if they're on a horse just being Mounties all the time. But perhaps that really does come down to the fact that they are more of a police service than a police force, and then there's another service that kicks into gear if it's really needed.
In comparison, the Canadian Broadcasting Association looked at the Canadian Police Memorial statistics and told us in 2018, since 1975, a total of 284 police officers have died on the job.
Was that 1975?
Since 1975,
wow, so in almost, let's call it 50 years,
total of 284 police officers have died on the job.
Only 100 more have died in 50 years compared to 1 year. I mean, obviously there's population differences there, but only 100 more in 50 times as long. That is pretty insane.
Of these, 101 were homicide victims, while 88 were killed in vehicle accidents, often while rushing to respond to a call in poor road conditions. We can certainly say that officers in the US have the more dangerous job by a long way. So you're getting a similar wage but have a more chance of killing someone and a more chance of being killed. You're also more likely to have to use force to adopt a more aggressive style of policing, all of which would likely make your job more stressful in the US.
Absolutely.
That stress is killing officers in the US, we're told. One study cited by Men's Health said the number of officers that took their own lives in 2016 was way more than those who were shot. There's not enough conversation about mental health within police and fire departments, said the study. It depends on where you are, of course. A recent study by the Department of Justice, for instance, said that the suicide rate in the Chicago Police Department was 60% higher than the US average.
Oh. 60% higher. My God. I mean, I know it's not an easy job, but I know even among any first responders that there is just many mental health issues, because you were just responding and seeing so many different problems within the world. But 60%, that's really high. Honestly, just coming back to here, I absolutely agree with what they've made him say here. Dude, no way I would do your job for less money and greater risk. And that's absolutely true. It's honestly one of those weird ones where for once, it's strange that America has any police officers in the first place. Usually it is the USA just pilfers everyone from Canada. But in this case, I'm surprised it's not the other way around. I mean, I don't know if there's some kind of citizenship that prevents you or how that entire thing would work. But surely out of those two countries, if you were truly just looking at it being a nice, safe police officer, all the arrows point north in comparison to just serving your own country in the USA. I mean, of course, in saying that, that really also is a big part of it in terms of people saying they want to give back to their community. They're proud to serve their country in their police force, their police unit, and all these different things. But man, when you just hear the statistics, it doesn't lean very nicely in one direction.
Apparently, getting the number of officers who do that after retiring is not easy to do. USA Today also reported in 2018 that more officers took their own lives, 148, than died in the line of duty. We can likely deduce that being a cop in the USA can be a very stressful job. In Canada in 2018, 9 officers took their own lives. This was high compared to recent years. We might also add here that there are many more cops in the US than there are in Canada. Statistics tell us that there are about 70,000 police officers in Canada and almost 10 times that amount in the USA.
Wow.
Other stats tell us the USA has considerably more officers per capita than Canada, but Canada has a lot less crime.
Interesting. Wow, just hearing those statistics once again, it's just so sad. I mean, now I am wondering how many police officers per capita Australia has, because to be having that many in the USA and then only having, well, they're saying a 10-to-1 ratio in Canada really does say a lot. Rate per 100,000, there we go. That's what whoa, the Vatican, jeez, alright then. This is what I really wanted and really needed in the first place, but where are we? Come on, we gotta be somewhere around here surely. There we go. Australia is 98, Canada was less than that, so it has to be in the 184, there we go, 121, so not too far below us, lower than New Zealand, Sweden, but then where is this USA? I still have yet to see it on the entire list. Ah, finally, there it is, the United States. Of course, when I search the USA or America, it doesn't come up, but there we go. It is actually below Australia, but above Canada as well, so there we go.
We might also look at websites that list countries for the worst police brutality, and next to developed countries sometimes stands the USA. We're not going to go into all the reasons why this happens, but we might say that any chance of being part of such brutality might be said to have future negative consequences not only for the victims but also the perpetrators. Even if they don't get caught, one day it's likely their actions will cause them some amount of unhappiness. Just reading various sites, it seems Canadians in general have more trust in their police. This no doubt makes their job easier. Psychology Today tells us this of U.S. policing. Recent polls suggest that the majority of Americans do not feel that the police are adequately held accountable for their actions, treat racial groups equally, or use the right amount of force. In conclusion, with Canadian police being liked more by those they serve, the fact that they have less chance of being killed, the fact that they deal with less crime and likely suffer less trauma, and the fact that their wages are not too different than their counterparts in the US, we'd say being a cop in Canada is better.
Yeah, there's not much arguing against that many statistics, is there? My goodness, the fact that even their wages are the same, for goodness sake. It's not like you're going, oh, I'll put up with the worst job because it's triple the wage because I'm in I don't know, the middle of Manhattan or something like that. I mean, maybe you are, but just overall, the fact that they're doing virtually every single thing better because of so many factors, and in a way really does show you why, at least in movies and things, they are so often portrayed as such a love-hate relationship. I mean, not even just in movies, just generally from what I hear, there is such a love-hate relationship with the police force in the USA because, well, it just is police force. It's police so many things compared to just a police servants. And so, as they have said many times throughout this entire video, it is definitely something that just has to be addressed. I mean, it's such a multifaceted issue that it takes so much time and money and resources, and I definitely don't have the answers, but just to see the statistics and everything that just makes the grass greener on the other side, even just like I said, down to the fact that the money's the same. But actually thinking about it, the price per person per capita in terms of expenditure is probably way higher in the US as well, and they're still getting worse outcomes. And so yeah, massive issue to fix. I don't envy anyone in that position, but really it has to be fixed because there are so many problems just worldwide everywhere with policing, and I'm sure Australia has its own fair share as well. But it would be honestly incredible just to see the impact it would make if you could just somehow copy paste all the statistics from Canada's side over to the USA side, just the impact that would be both on the policing side and also just everyone that is affected by the policing side, be it crime rates and all the families. Just it would be amazing. But anyway, in saying that, I reckon I'm going to call it there. So thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, feel free to do the YouTube algorithm things down below. Also, if this is the first video of mine that you are watching, then make sure to go check out any other ones I've done. Also, make sure to go check out the original video down in the description below. Or hey, maybe even just want to consider subscribing so that you don't miss another one of these in the future. But all in all, have a good one and see ya.